All right, so today the top 10 ways that we failed using Kessils.
We have.
Yeah, so all kinds of mistakes here, and you don't have to learn the hard way because we already have. All right, so number one, you could chase your tail trying to find information on all these lights,
Or you could watch Investigates videos. So don't make the mistake of overlooking some of those Investigates videos. In them we cover for not only just this Kessil A360X, but also the 9X and a few other ones. We actually test mounting height, spectrum, where to set it, what you should expect for different types of corals. All the information's in there, and all you really have to do is copy it.
Yeah, so if you want to know if this is the right light for you and how to use it, that is the best resource. All right, so number two, right tool, right job.
Yeah, and Kessil does this, so don't make the mistake of thinking that you're locked into one shape. There is a specific reason you choose this, which is probably a square, and then the 9X, which is rectangle.
Yeah, so when you look at the pattern, this is a pretty square looking light. So if you're doing a square tank like a 60 cube, this is the right tool for that. But also, even a rectangle like a 120 is actually, you're going to use two of these. It's actually two 2-foot squares next to each other, so still right tool, right job. But if I'm looking at something like a 90 gallon, where all of a sudden it is a more rectangular shape, even if it's rectangles times 2, well then the 9X is actually the right tool because it puts out a more rectangular pattern. And that's one of the things you're going to see with the Kessils is they have so many ways to make sure that you're getting the right type of light for your tank. All right, so number three, there wasn't a lot of insight to this before, now there is.
Yeah, so don't make the mistake of not considering the mounting height that you want. Some, like this Kessil right here, 8 inches. Yeah, 9X, a little higher. Or you can modify this one to make it even higher.
I think this is the only light out there, actually, that I can think of anyway, where you can adjust the perfect mounting height for it. So, they have a wide angle lens on it, and so 8 inches, it hits the edge of the tank, but if I go up to 18 inches, it's gonna spill all over the room.
Right.
Unless I pop in the little reflector, and that would allow me to focus the light into the tank. And so again, in the Investigates, you can see exactly how all of that works, but getting the right tool for the right job. And then part of that is understanding where you're gonna mount it. So if you're just gonna use the mounting arms, it's really easy just to get it to the right height of 8 inches. But if I'm mounting it into a hood or some other application where it might be 14 inches, now I can actually change how the light is distributed in the tank using one of their lenses. All right, so number four, this is a personal opinion, but I just don't use these.
Yeah, the mistake is using the gooseneck. So there's a bendable arm, and sometimes you can get it a little farther out, a little closer up, but kind of hard to work with in some cases. And when you use multiples of them, a little difficult to balance evenly.
Yeah, so when you use multiple, they all have to be bent to the exact same shape to actually not look wonky. And they have the cords like all zip tied around the outside. Why use that when they have their like a series arm where it's nice and uniform, it's a 90-degree angle, the cords go through the bar, it just looks way, way cleaner. So there are very few instances where I would use those goosenecks, and actually the A-series arm is much better. So number five, this is actually a pretty important note.
Yeah, so don't make the mistake of not considering the controller, the spectral controller, or the Wi-Fi dongle for this. You can get the job done just by plugging it in and turning the color knob, but you're also, when you get the controller or the Wi-Fi dongle, you can skip the timer, you can add some more features, there's a whole variety of things that are unlocked.
Yeah, so that's the big thing. Is the first step is now I can get that kind of programming. I get that dusk to dawn effect because I can program it in to dim throughout the day, even create like moonlight effects out of it. And on top of that, right now out of the box, I can just basically change the color to whatever is pleasing to the eye and know that I got my corals like health covered. However, if I want to kind of go pro, I can use the control pad controller, or I can get the Wi-Fi dongle, plug it into the K-Link here, and not only do I get all those dusk to dawn and maybe moonlight effects, but I also can unlock the features of red, green, and UV, which are kind of like pro-level channels that get beyond the Kessil logic, allow you to kind of like do the final frontier. So consider the actual control rather than just on-off for the light. You get something totally new. So number six, this is probably as close as I've seen as to halide-like shimmer from an LED. but it can actually be controlled in this case as well.
Yeah, so don't overlook the fact that you can adjust the flow and the water separation on the top of your tank. You can also adjust the mounting height to control more shimmer, less shimmer.
Yeah, so the reason that it produces more shimmer than most LEDs is because all the LEDs are under a single lens, which creates a single point of light that's brighter and refracts differently than a whole grid of lights. In fact, sometimes you have a whole grid of lights that doesn't produce any shimmer.
Yeah.
There's so many intersecting lines. It looks just kind of like fuzz. In this case, you're getting hard shimmer lines for sure,
Yeah.
most closely matching halides to me. But if it's too much shimmer for you for some reason, you can actually raise it and lower it, and it will affect the spread, but it'll also affect the shimmer quite a bit. But even beyond that, the biggest thing you can do is just change how your power heads are aimed at the surface of the water. If I got more ripples, there'll be more shimmer. If I have less ripples, less shimmer. All right, so number 7, I stole the thunder again.
Yeah, so the mistake is missing how close the Kessils mimic that old style of metal halide lighting. There's some metal halide diehards out there who say, I just like my metal, I love my metal halides because of the shimmer that they produced. This is about as close as you get.
Yeah, so if you think about it, you know, a lot of the gold standard used to be T5 halides, right? So T5 is obviously a big giant light that doesn't produce any shimmer, or very little anyway, super diffused and even. The halides in these giant reflectors might look like, or even in the big bulbs, might look like a giant source of light, but it's really this tiny little puck that's inside the bulb that's producing all that light. Not all that much different than this. So that shimmer lines comes from a single point of light that is very, very bright. All right, number 8, is it more important that you get what you want or what the plant wants?
Yeah, so don't overlook or make the mistake of choosing the tuna sun, you know, white light over the standard, the Flora, the H series Refugium light. That purple and red kind of blended spectrum is actually more beneficial to the plants than your little white light would be.
That's where your plants are actually getting the energy from. And a lot of white is actually visually just adding in like the green range and adds brightness to it, at least some of those other ranges. So here's one of the ways you can know that the plant isn't actually utilizing green. It's because it is green.
Yeah.
That means it's reflecting the green light back at the eye. It's not absorbing it and using energy. So if you want, just to so you can see it and visually looks nice, you can use the tuna sun and it will look kind of like sunlight on it, especially if it's a display refugium. But if all you really want is not to waste LEDs and get the most bang for your buck, the refugium light uses the spectrums that are designed specifically for providing energy for photosynthesis and the right solution for a refugium. Number 9, this is the way I use them in all of my SPS tanks, so at least consider this.
Yeah, don't make the mistake of overlooking how well these Kessil lights mix with other lighting technologies. So you see the hybrid T5 with Kessil all the time, especially on Ryan's E170, and then you start to see like what you're going to go with on your own house, LEDs with LEDs.
Yeah, so on like my softy tanks, my LPS tanks, I usually just go with one Kessil. It's good enough for me. But if I'm going SPS and I really want that fill light, and again I want that halide mixed with the T5 gold standard, and it really gives me that shimmer like I'm looking for, and all the reduction in shadows that are required for SPS. And again, looking at the E170 here, you can see that this light produces results. Like mixed with T5s, in this case with the Aquatic light fixture, these hybrid solutions work really well. However, what we're looking for now is it's not necessarily that you gotta mix LEDs with T5s or LEDs with halides. It's I needed to mix, a spotlight or floodlight with fill light. And so you can actually provide fill light with things like the bars from the Reef Brights. And so think about the other options that you can use in conjunctions with some light sources to produce a more robust solution. All right, so number 10, is 1 enough?
Yeah, don't make the mistake of thinking that 1's enough. So watch the Investigates videos, we kind of help you with this, but in a lot of cases, especially if you're like kind of over a 24 by 24 inch area, the more, the better.
Yeah, and so rather than just guessing or listen to somebody else who's guessing, you can look at his Investigates again, and we can look and measure what's your goal. If your goal is an LPS tank, then we can measure and show you what 2 look like over a 120. Or if my guess is I'm looking for like an SPS tank, I can show you what 3 or even 4 look like when I start to spread them out. And you can get the right tool, the right number of those tools, and then use them correctly. All right, so if there's only one thing you heard today, let it be this.
Yeah, for me, it's we didn't hit on it too much, but there is a difference between that tuna sun and that Kessil Refugium light. So if you want to make your Refugium look cool, it's the tuna sun. But if you want your Refugium, especially like Cato and all your macroalgae to grow, the Refugium light is the right tool. So choose the right tool for your application.
And for me, Kessil is the real deal. That's the one thing, I guess, that I like to get across. This is a fiber optics company that has expanded into use of application of LEDs to horticulture, to studio lighting. They understand the spectrums that are used for each application. They understand the distribution of light for each application. And more importantly, they're providing solutions to problems that people have. You have a rectangle tank, we have a rectangle solution with the 9X. You have a square tank area that you want to provide over a square tank. Then we have the 360X, or even multiples of these for multiple square areas. And on top of that, we have solutions that if you want to mount it higher than is ideal, we can put lenses on it. So these guys are just the real deal, and they provide solutions to all kinds of issues and challenges that reefers face. All right, so if you want to see Randy's investigates on the 360X, you can see it right here, or if you want to see the entire Kessil array, right here.